Good morning to all of you. Today we will continue with classroom technology. At the beginning, I said to you, classroom technology refers to anything that we use in the classroom that supports the understanding of our lesson. We have looked at media, how to use newspapers in the classroom to make our lessons more exciting and more understandable for our learners. We've also looked at how to use worksheets in the classroom so that we can facilitate the understanding of the lessons among our learners. Now, the assignments for these two things, that is the media and the worksheet, is due today, and these assignments should be emailed to me. Today, we're going to look at another very commonly used resource in the classroom, and that is charts and posters, right? I'm sure within your school experience, you would have come across teachers who made use of these charts and posters. So what we're going to look at today is, very quickly, we're going to look at the role of charts and posters in the classroom, how to make them, and when to use them. I'm going to focus more on the assignment a little later during this presentation. So I'm going to run through the slides on charts and posters very quickly, because you can go through them on your own. All those slides are very, very self-explanatory. But I'm going to try to spend more time on the assignment for this section, which is called an interactive chart. It's a little bit different from an ordinary chart or a poster. So let me share the screen with you with those slides very quickly, firstly. Not sure why the screen is not changing. Okay, so basically what we are going to be looking at is the differences between charts and posters. We're going to look at how we are going to design these charts and posters and how we can use them in the classroom effectively. That's the most important thing. But firstly, before we go on to making of charts and posters, what you need to understand is the difference between a chart and a poster. A chart contains lots of details. A chart will have both text as well as graphics. In other words, you'll have writing as well as pictures or drawings on that chart. Now, and the chart will focus on your specific topic of your lesson. And we normally make a chart when we want learners to remember the information for a long, long time. So what teachers normally do, they'll make a chart, they will use it during the teaching of that lesson, and then they will paste it on the chartboard so that learners can always refer to it. Now, charts are made, like, for example, in mathematics, if you want the learners to remember the theorem of Pythagoras, right? So you would make a chart of the theorem of Pythagoras and the formula for the theorem of Pythagoras, and you would stick it on the chartboard so that learners can always refer to it and remember the theorem of Pythagoras, right? The square on the hypotenuse is equal to the sum of the square on the other two sides. That is the theorem of Pythagoras. So charts are primarily made to help you in your teaching in the classroom, as well as to help learners to remember the core information of your lesson. Whereas posters, on the other hand, do not have lots of information. Posters have the bare necessity, and posters are not used a lot for the actual teaching. Posters are used more to give information, like if the school is having a sports day, or if they're having a function at the school, then you would make a poster, like if they're having, say, a concert. So you'll put the date of the concert, the time, the ticket prices, and things like that. So it contains bare minimum information, right? If you know, during election time, you always see these posters of the candidates on the light poles, right? It has a picture of the candidate, his name, and what party he or she belongs to. So that is just to convey the core information. It doesn't have details like in charts, right? So when you make a poster, you need to remember who you're making it for. That's very important. A poster must be made for your audience, right? It must be made for the people that are going to be viewing it. Now, why is it important in the school situation is because if, for example, you are teaching in the senior FET phase, so, and you're teaching, let's say, in a grade 11 class, you cannot make a poster that is fit for a grade 7 class. So you always must take into account the level of understanding of your learners. And the chart must be suitable for that level of the learners. So when we look at some of the posters later on, you'll understand what I'm talking about, right? So when you design a chart, now you need to understand that you can prepare a chart on different sizes of paper. And when we refer to the chart paper, we call it the format on which, that is the surface on which you will prepare your chart. Now, if you take a page like this, the ordinary page, this is a A4 size paper. It is an A4 size paper. Now, if you double it, it becomes A3. If you double the A3, it becomes A2. If you double the A2, it becomes A1. So a A1 piece of chart paper is a big piece of chart paper, right? So always think about, when we're talking about the size of the paper, if it's A1, you must know it's a big paper. If it's A4, it's the ordinary paper that we write on or get our notes on and things like that. So that's one thing that you need to know, is on what format are you preparing your chart. And it's going to be a blank surface, and therefore it would need some input from you as a teacher. You need to decide how you're going to prepare that blank sheet of paper. where you're going to write the text, where you're going, if you want to put pictures or if you want to put drawings, where you're going to put the drawings, and so on. Now, when we talk about that, we talk about the layout of the chart, right? You as a teacher will determine the layout of the chart. And when we look at a few examples just now, we are going to see how that is going to be done. So when you're doing the layout, you would use blocks where you would decide where to write your title of the chart. Must have a title. All charts must have a title. I'm just trying to change the screen here for you. So every chart or poster must have a title. And these titles are normally written in bold font. You must remember that your chart must be visible to your learners from approximately 5 meters away. They must be able to see what you have written on the chart and what drawings or pictures you have. So this slide here gives you an idea of how to lay out your chart, where to write the title, where to put some information in. You can put a picture in this chart. You can have information, picture, information. So this is a draft of your chart. So making a chart doesn't mean just taking a blank sheet of paper and just writing and sticking pictures and creating a chart. It requires a certain amount of thought on the part of the teacher, where to put this information, where to put the pictures or the drawings to make it look attractive to the learners. The learners must be attracted to the chart. They mustn't run away from the chart. So it has to be presentable to the learners. Right. So in the following slides, you will have more ideas. Right. So when you are planning your chart, you don't do just one plan and say, okay, this is fine, this is how I'm going to do my chart. You can have a number of plans and decide which one is going to be the most effective for your learners. Okay. So we're just going to look at some examples of charts now, this so that you can, okay, this slide here, it's also giving you an example of how you're going to lay out your chart. Now I'm going to look at this example, the next one. Sorry, it's not that one. Okay, so if you look at this, it's a very simple chart. And this particular chart is used in the foundation phase. Now, if you think about it, as I said earlier on, you must always bear in mind who you're making the chart for. So if this is for the foundation phase, it's a simple chart, but it is effective. Simple because remember, in the foundation phase, many of those learners still cannot read or write. So much of their learning will depend on the visual, on what they see. So here they're looking at structures. That's the topic of this chart, structures, right? Man-made structures and natural structures. So if you see in this chart, under the man-made structures, they've put in things like the aeroplane, the train, the guitar, the ship, telephone, the castle. Now, these are the things that these learners are used to. These are the things, this is how they see these man-made objects in the little books that they read, in their storybooks. This is how the aeroplane and the train and so on are drawn. So they are familiar with this, and they will associate these structures, and it's easy to teach that these structures are made by man. Whereas the natural structures like the tree and the spider web and the butterfly and so on, all those things that you see there are natural ones. And this is also, they find these pictures in their storybooks. So this chart is suitable for the foundation phase. They can have a picture in the mind of what man-made objects are and what natural objects are. This chart I've deliberately used, we have deliberately used this chart to show what a chart must not look like, right? This chart is a very cluttered chart. If you take the title, it says Silk and its secrets or whatever it is there. Now, the title itself, it's so small, one cannot read the title of this chart. As well as it is very cluttered. There was no planning in this chart. People have just stuck pictures and they have done writing on this chart, and there is no, you can see there's no planning of the layout of the chart. There isn't a flow of this chart, right? So this is an example of a very poorly constructed chart, right? And you can see in terms of the writing, the font sizes are so small, it would be difficult for the learners to read this. So this is a chart that the learners will run away from. They wouldn't like to look at it because it is badly presented. It is, the facts on this chart are mixed. There is no flow. There's no sequential flow. So it's difficult for learners to learn from this chart. So this is what I mean when we refer to a very poorly laid out chart. If you look at this chart, it says the mosquito life cycle, right? It is a well laid out chart, and anybody can follow the life cycle of the mosquito in the way it is laid out and in the pictures that have been used, as well as the writing is quite clear, right? So this chart would serve the purpose of that we want the learners to remember the life cycle of the mosquito, and this is the chart that serves the purpose adequately, right? That is the information about charts. The other information, the other part that we talk about are posters. Now, posters are, as I said, give you minimal information, but they convey important messages. If you look at this poster, it's a very simple poster, right? And the title is Save the Earth. And the symbol there is the earth, and you have these hands of different colors. It means the world population, right? It's made up of different racial groups, and everyone is involved in, must be involved in saving the earth. Everyone must be conscious of the environmental conditions. So it conveys a message, right? So in a poster, we don't have as much information as we have in the in a chart, right? If you go along in this presentation, they have other examples of this is an example of a professionally made poster, and I'm not going to go too much into the poster making tips because it's the same as for the charts. It's very similar to charts, but here in poster making, we have very focused information. We don't have too much of writing in a poster. The poster centers around the visual and a little bit of writing. Now, in a school situation, we display these charts and posters in different ways. So the rest of the slides here will give you ideas of how to display your charts and posters to make it attractive, for the learners to look at, right? So you can look at these different layouts. So what I'm now going to focus on is your assignment for this particular section, which is due on Friday, the 4th of March. So it's going to stop that sharing. Okay, so your assignment is referred to as an interactive chart. Now, when we talk about an interactive chart, here it means that we are going to use a chart in the classroom, which you as a teacher will design, but the learners will also help to create the chart. So in doing so, we have learner participation in the lesson. So the interactive chart is slightly different from the ordinary charts that you have seen in the past. Here, as a teacher, you need to think about how to create your chart. So when you create an interactive chart, you will create what is called a skeleton chart. So I'm going to just show you an example now. So let me just stop the screen here. So when you look at the interactive chart, so here we have a chart, the human digestive system. Let's say we are teaching about the human digestive system in biology to maybe to a grade 10 or 11 class. And our objective here is that we want our learners to know the different organs that make up the digestive system. We want our learners to know the different organs that make up the digestive system. And we also want our learners to know the functions of the different organs. So as a teacher, I will make this chart, but I will not complete it. Right? As you can see in this example, we have a diagram of the human digestive system, and we have arrows pointing to the different organs of the digestive system. So that is all we would start off with, right? We'd start off with this particular chart. So I want you to remember this chart. So when you are teaching this lesson, you will only put this chart, the blank chart, where they have no labels, right? So as you teach the lesson, so you will create the labels on small slips of paper like this, which can be stuck in the appropriate places on this chart, right? So look at how we have done this creative chart once more. We had a blank diagram of the digestive system, and the labels for the organs have been written separately, okay? So as you teach the lesson, you can start filling in the chart. Let me show you this. So you can see those labels. So let's say you're talking about, so you don't fill all the labels one time. So let's say you start with the salivary glands. So you'll put the label there by the salivary glands, and you'll discuss everything that is related to the salivary glands. You'll say the salivary glands has a function in the digestive system. It gives off spit or sputum to make your food more in a liquid form so that it goes down the esophagus. So then you'll put the esophagus label, right? as the food goes down, can one of you mute yourself, please? As the food goes down the esophagus, right, it is helped by the saliva, right, that pushes the food down the esophagus. So you discussed it. And then the food enters the stomach, then you'll put the label for the stomach. So you see, the interactive chart helps you to develop your lesson. It helps you to develop your lesson step by step. So you, as I said, you do not put, in this chart, I've just put all the labels, but the idea is when you are teaching, you as the teacher will label each part, discuss, and then go on to the next part, label that part, discuss. So what happens is it helps the learner to understand the flow of food in the digestive system. And they will then have this picture of the entire digestive system, right? So you can go even further. So the slips of yellow paper that you see on the side, it is the function of each of these organs. So you can even create the functions, put the labels with the functions if you want to, right? So this is what we mean by an interactive chart. So after you teach the lesson, you can then put this to conclude. When you're concluding your lesson, you can put this chart back on, take out all the labels, right? And then to test whether your learners have understood this lesson or not, you can then ask them to come and label the chart correctly. That is how we use the interactive chart in the classroom. And that is why we call it interactive, because you are interacting with the chart, the learners are interacting with the chart as well. And at the same time, they are learning the organs. They are learning the organs of the human digestive system, and they're going to also learn the functions of the human digestive system. So this is how we use an interactive chart. So when you are designing your interactive chart, you will start off with a chart that doesn't have all the information. The information can be written on little slips of paper like that, and then you can use that firstly to develop your lesson, and then to assess the learners. You can use that when you are concluding the lesson, ask them to relabel the chart. So I've used the human digestive system here as an example of what an interactive chart is. Now you can have interactive charts in many, many subjects, and we'll go back now to so you'll understand the assignment better now. Okay, so having looked at the human digestive system, so let us read the assignment. It says, interactive charts encourage learner participation in a lesson. The very term interactive suggests an interaction between the teacher, learner, and the lesson content via the chart. So you have seen the video presentation. Don't worry about the foundation phase. The one that I showed you is important. When to use interactive charts in a lesson: in the development of a lesson, which develops critical thinking, and in the consolidation of a lesson to reinforce the content that you taught. How to make an interactive chart? Interactive charts can be made on various formats. That means from an A4 size, that is the normal paper, right up to A0 size, which is a very large piece of paper, right? So the teacher creates a skeleton chart, and the learners will complete the chart, or even the teacher can complete the chart in the development phase. You can do that. Examples of an interactive chart: life science, the digestive system. I've shown you the digestive system. That's an example. In geography, you can do map work. You can provide the map of Africa unlabeled, and then you can put in the countries of Africa in the map when you are teaching. And then You can ask them, and there's a number of activities that you can do. You can calculate distances. There's so many different activities. Where are the border posts? Where are what river separates them? There's so many activities that you can do using a geography interactive chart. Mathematics, you can teach the types of triangles, equilateral, isosceles, scalene, right angle, and so on. Here, you can cut strips of paper, right? And you can actually construct the triangles on your format. If you have 3 equal sizes of paper, you can make a triangle, and that's an equilateral triangle. A triangle with 2 equal sides and 1 unequal side, you can create that triangle. You can create a right angle triangle. So that is what we mean by interactive. You can have the label, scalene, right angle, isosceles, and equilateral, and you can ask your learners to come forward and build these triangles on the chart. That is interaction. For language, grammar, parts of speech, it can be done during the development or consolidation of the lesson. You provide the sentences, and the learners will identify the parts of speech used, right? So you can have sentences, you have your parts of speech on separate labels, and they can come and put in the labels on the parts, on the sentences. So what do you need to do? You first need to select a topic from your specialization subject from the CAPS document. If you don't have the CAPS document, you can create a chart. I will allow you to create a chart, even if it's not from the CAPS document, right? Then you decide on the topic of your interactive chart. You first plan your interactive chart on an A4 size of paper. That means on the small paper, you plan it first, you plan it. And you decide on the topic, what pictures or drawings, your labels or writing you will have on the chart layout, right? So you make about 2 or 3 plans. Once you have decided on the plan, you will find a suitable format on which to do your interactive chart. Since you will paste and remove things from the chart, it is best to look for sturdy format like a piece of cardboard. This can be a piece of cardboard box, a cereal box, the inside part, right? You can use whatever you find in your environment, right? A piece of the one side of a box, you can use that as your format because the paper may be too flimsy for you to stick your labels on, right? You need to lay out your chart neatly, use one type and size of font. Use color to make it attractive and watch your spelling, right? This means when you're writing, use one type of font. Don't use different sizes of fonts and different styles of fonts, right? Remember, the basic chart has very little information. So you'll go back and look at that digestive system example I've given you. Information will be added to the chart. Hence, there's interaction by the teachers or learners. Now, how are you going to present it to me? Once you have created the chart, you need to do a short video recording of 2 to 3 minutes showing how the chart will be used in the classroom. When you do the recording, the chart and yourself must be visible. You must view the video before submitting it to me. Look critically at your video to ensure that you have adhered to all the instructions given to you in this document. You got to WhatsApp your video recording to me, or you can do it via YouTube link. You also need to take 2 close-up photos of your interactive chart. So you will take 2 photographs of your interactive chart, and you will also attach it to the presentation, right? The one photo should be of your chart without the loose labels, and the other photo, your chart with the loose labels. So in other words, if you think about the digestive system chart, the blank chart, and the other one where I had the labels. Yeah, so the loose labels added onto the chart in the correct positions on the chart. Submit these 2 photos to me via WhatsApp, and the due date is Friday, the 4th of March. So I just want to go back and explain how you're going to present your video. So when you send the photograph, one photograph will be this one, where it's blank, and the other photograph will be this one, where it is, where you've got your labels on. So how do you present this to me? So it's going to be a short presentation. So you will have, like, say you have this chart in the background, and you will say to me, my topic is the human digestive system. I will first put up the, I'm actually telling you how to do your video presentation now. So you will say, I will first put up the chart, the interactive chart, without any labels on the chartboard. Whilst I am teaching the human digestive system, I will take one organ at a time and label it for the learners. And I will discuss the function of that organ as well. Once I am completed with my presentation of all the organs of the digestive system, I will then pull out all the labels, and in the conclusion phase, to check whether my learners have understood what I have taught, and to check whether they still remember the names of the different organs of the digestive system, I will then pull out all the labels and then call them at random to come and pick a label and stick in the correct places. That is how my learners will interact with this chart. Okay, so it's quite simple. I will send this video out, this recording out to everyone, and you will understand it properly. I will also send the example of the digestive system to you. There is one other example on the heart, which you will find on Learn 2022 as well. Okay, so I'm going to stop there. Are there any questions? Any questions about this assignment? It's a very interesting assignment, the interactive chart. It's different from the ordinary chart. You can unmute and ask me questions if you want to. Are you all happy?
Yes, sir. I have a question.
Yes, Bongiwe.
You said we must look for the topic under the CAPS document.
Yeah. What is your specialization, Bongiwe?
It's creative arts and drama.
Oh, yes. You'll have lots of nice topics there.
Okay.
You know,
okay, thank you.
Things like